Hello, how's everybody doing? Today, we have a somewhat impromptu stream, because I watched Chainsaw Man, and I want to talk about it. So that is what also the stream is named. I really enjoyed it, and that's why we are here, basically. Just to go over, like what I know about it, what I don't know about it, right? Because I haven't really mentioned it ever, basically, on the channel. I can very easily say what I know about it, and that is nothing. It was one of those series that I remember a long time ago when I was looking for, like, new series to watch, right? I heard about this manga. When people were asking, like, I really enjoyed Attack on Titan, what should I watch, what should I read, like, what more is there, right? And I always heard about this thing called Chainsaw Man. But obviously, it was just a manga. There wasn't anything more to it. I always knew that it existed, right? But that is basically it. So, to sum it up very quickly, I know next to nothing about Chainsaw Man, and that's it. I don't plan on reading the manga right now either. Because, I mean, it's getting an adaptation. It's getting a fairly high-budget adaptation. So I kind of want to just experience the whole thing blind, basically. If it's anything like this episode, I think I'll enjoy it a lot. Did you watch the opening, and are you aware of the movie references in it? I know that there are quite a few movie references in it. My cat is trying to attack my legs now. But yes, I did watch it. I know there are several references in it. I definitely missed some. But I know that there are quite a few, yes. And the music is really good too. But we'll get to all that as well. I kind of just want to go through the episode in a sort of a unscripted format, right? Obviously, I'm just rambling. Don't really have anything structured. I just wrote down a few things that I found interesting throughout the episode. So, the first thing I want to note, like literally right away, is the tone of it. Everything from the visuals to the tone in the dialogue, everything was super dark, and I loved it. Just right off the bat, I literally just wrote in my notes, love how dark it is. It's one of those things that I feel like is sorely missing in modern anime. When I think back to series like Monster, right? Even something like Evangelion or Attack on Titan, we don't really get a lot of those series anymore, right? And I really miss it. I feel like Chainsaw Man has that in droves. Enjoy my cat just chilling up there now. So that's like the first major thing. Everything feels super dark and super gritty. And obviously, I covered The Walking Dead on the channel, so not surprisingly, it's one of my favorite aspects of the series, right? And the other thing that I think it does incredibly well, it immediately set up such a basic premise. Basically, the whole paying off debts thing. He basically says that he sold a bunch of his own organs and whatnot to pay off a debt, right? And then he just keeps doing it. He keeps doing it, and then we see him fight the first demon, and he basically says that, oh, I don't think I'll be able to pay it off, right? And this is another thing I feel like is worth noting in how quickly it sets up a very gripping premise that is incredibly simple to understand, and it doesn't really have anything more to it, right? It's just he needs to pay off this debt. Basically, I assume what we're going to see is him trying to do that a lot of the time. So I feel like that's another thing that is sort of easy to overlook in how wacky the world actually turns out to be later on. But it's super simple and down to earth. It's something very relatable, I think, for a lot of people. And you could also tie it together with a whole bunch of commentary on debts and all that, of course, as well. Another thing that I noted down was how it subverts the whole animal companion thing. Obviously, animal companions are usually very cute, and Pochita, I guess, is also that. But it is also a literal chainsaw. And I feel like the dynamic between them works surprisingly well. From like the very first moments in the episode, I got the vibe that they are sort of really close, even though we got to see them for all of like, what, 5-10 minutes, probably. Might just be my own thing. I think I've talked about this in videos before, but a solid animal companion in a series is something I will always enjoy. I loved Momo in Avatar. My cat is named after Momo in Avatar. And here, I think they nailed it, which obviously also sets up the end of the episode, which is like the big turning point in this one. But all in all, the bond between them can be felt immediately, which I think is another thing that is very much worth noting. It's sort of surprising how well it works and how quickly it actually works for me. And of course, we'd also get the flashback in the episode. Another thing I noted down that I thought about while watching this, right? We got to the first whole demon battle and all that, and I just noted down, we need more zombie anime. And when I thought about it, there's not a lot of zombie anime. Why is there not a lot of zombie anime? It seems like something that kind of naturally lends itself to the medium, right? I remember Kirkman, the author of The Walking Dead, he was often asked when he was writing the comic, before obviously the TV show started, whether he would want to turn the comic book into an anime or into a animated show of some sort. And he always said that, yeah, he absolutely would. Watch High School of the Dead. I know enough about it not to watch it. I've heard the infamous sniper scene and all that. I've heard about that. There's plenty of post-apocalyptic stories, but none that are really set in a zombie apocalypse for some reason, which is kind of odd, considering you would get around a lot of the technical aspects of trying to sell, like the zombie apocalypse, with real-world costs and then makeup and virtual effects and everything like that. We need more zombie anime. We got a little bit of that here, which I think was interesting. We'll see whether or not this sort of undead, basic demons type stuff continues to play a role or not. I'm guessing that it won't, because it seemed to be a sort of a specific ability in this case. So, after we got the first zombies, we obviously see him get attacked, and then we get something that I was really, really surprised by. We get the whole scene of Denji trying to run out, right? And we see him basically limp around and try to just grasp onto things just to hold himself up, right? I think I just wrote, is it mocapped? Yes. Is the limping scene mocapped? Because I don't know what they did, but the animation in that scene, it feels so real. It feels mocapped, like 100%. The limping feels so natural. It was awesome. That might just be Mappa flexing, so that's pretty cool. Mappa does a lot of mocapping. It might be that. It might genuinely just be mocapped, yeah. Because it feels like it feels super weighty, right? I feel like weightiness in anime is something that is super hard to get down. And surprisingly, I think Wit did it very, very well with early Attack on Titan. If you watch the original animation for the Titans, a lot of that felt super, super weighty despite it being entirely hand-drawn. Whatever sort of technique they use, because I know they use a little bit of CG here and there as well. They use plenty of CG in the ending sequences, which we'll talk about in a second as well. But whatever they used, the limping sequence, purely from a technical aspect, was really, really good in my opinion. Then we, of course, get the flashback, which was genuinely surprisingly sad. We get the whole, I just don't want you to starve type deal and all that, and he basically just says, if anything ever happens to you, I want you to have my body. And again, I just love how much the whole classical animal companion vibe is sort of subverted with this thing that is technically a demon, right? That was a really interesting remix on the classic trope of having this sort of cutesy animal by your side that isn't entirely cutesy, and both of you are sort of messed up, right? Both of you are pretty dark when you really think about it. And then we get, of course, the scene of Kid Denji giving Pochita his arm to heal it, and that was again that was so sad. It was really, really good. It again just really neatly establishes that link between them, which I'm guessing will be a major part of the story moving forward. It sort of seems like a huge deal, and I really hope that link isn't lost, because obviously they do meld in the end, right? Which you would sort of assume that we wouldn't see Pochita anymore, but again, they do meld. So I feel like we should get at least some sort of like inner dialogue or something along those lines later in the series as well. But then, around like the 18-minute mark or so, we of course see Chainsaw Man actually be born. From the technical aspects, I really, really love that the sound design, it just basically gets flipped on its head, right? The music switches up instantly, and the entire, like, sound design of the chainsaw actually ripping through the bodies and all that. Again, it feels super weighty. The impacts felt, like, really, really good. And the whole sequence, in my mind, was done very well from the technical side of making it feel sort of rewarding, I guess is the word. The only thing that stood out to me is the appearance of Denji's Chainsaw Man form. Because it felt too shiny. Everything was like super dark in the scene, right? But Denji just stood out to me. I feel like he was way too shiny in most scenes he was in. It looked a bit weird at times, especially when we got like his full body shot. He just shines in the scenes, and I don't know why. But generally, the animation here was really, really good. And the like him fighting the big demon, that was also really, really, really good. The music was really, really cool too. Obviously, the triumphant theme is gone, and it sort of got super dark and metal in some instances. It was really, really good. Again, I love myself a nice and gritty series, and this very much promises to be that. And I feel like that sequence sort of just made me more excited to see how the rest of the story plays out. I saw a lot of people complaining about the CGI, but it actually looked pretty good. Almost impossible to animate with the use of CGI like Chainsaw blowing. Yes, that's the thing. Like, with his abilities, you can't even really imagine it being hand-drawn. I mean, you obviously could, but like the upside versus the cost, it feels way, way too big for something like him. I feel like they could have done a little bit more to sort of make him less... He stood out basically too much in some scenes for me. It's not really CG per se that's the problem, because I've just gotten used to it at this point. But in some cases, it felt like they could have just, like, turned down the brightness on him specifically, and it would have looked, it would have just fit in with the whole sequence better. It's like feels like a compiling problem more than anything else. Because generally speaking, the CG, I think, was really, really strong. They definitely leverage the benefits of using CG. The scenes were incredibly dynamic. I'm definitely not going to complain, right? I think the downsides are way outweighed by the quality of the fight. So, in my mind, when you take the whole thing, I still think it was really, really good. And then, like, him going on his full-on rampage against all of them, that was just perfect. And then we get to what was surprisingly one of my favorite sequences. And that is, like, the dreary morning we get. I got Stephen King vibes watching this, right? The whole, like, fog slowly coming up this forest, and then we get, like, the scene, like, oh boy, the scene of the pipe, and, like, the one water droplet hanging on, that scene was excellent. Like, it's literally just a water pipe, and I'm out here thinking, like, this is literally the most beautiful scene in this episode. I don't know what it is with me, but you give me, like, a sad and dreary morning, I'm all in. I'm all in. That was absolutely excellent. But of course, the last thing we basically see in this one are the agents, which I have seen in the trailer. In one of the trailers, the whole sequence of them walking up was... We already saw that. And basically, we hear that, yes, someone got here before us. And then, of course, she comes up to Denji, realizes that he's not a demon. And even in this scene, he did seem a little bit weird compared to her. He feels a bit shiny. Again, it's another thing I feel like could have been made a little better with brightness. And when they focused on his neck, like with the whole, I don't know what that's supposed to be, whatever that is, like those things that come down his neck, those in particular seemed a bit uncanny, I guess is the word. But yeah, the whole hug me scene, that was sad. That was sad. And I feel like this is going to be a trend that we're going to see in this, whatever Denji's story turns out to be. Obviously, he has a pretty messed up past with the whole debt we still don't really know about. Obviously, that is apparently passed on from his father. So, what's going on there? Curious to see more. He does seem like a pretty messed up character, though. I did really like the sequence of like his Chainsaw Man form dripping down. That was a really interesting visual. I didn't know how they were going to handle the actual transformation, and I'm curious how the transformation is going to happen when we actually see him enter his chainsaw form, right? Because we didn't really get to see him transform per se in this episode, at least. It's sort of hidden, right? He gets surrounded by the zombies, and then he comes out already as Chainsaw Man. So I want to see how the transformation looks. Is it just like these blobs coming in and making his new form or something like that? I'm curious what that's going to look like. Whether or not they somehow make like chainsaws dynamically come out of his arms or something like that. The final scene is, of course, a reference to what we saw earlier in the episode, where he's basically like, they talk about food and getting breakfast and all that, right? And she basically says that, oh, we're going to have like, what does she name? She names like a long list of foods. She says like we're going to get like pancakes and all that. And of course, earlier in the episode he said that he would just want bread with jam, but that's too expensive. So that was a really nice callback, just in a single episode to sort of tie up that feeling of things changing. And also, one thing I forgot. Speaking of random shots that I really enjoyed, the shot we got in the warehouse, where we just pan around that pillar, and we just see like all the bodies, that was a really cool shot. Purely from a cinematography point of view. It's definitely a small detail, but I really enjoyed it. And it feels like camera work is something that will be a strong point in this series that I honestly didn't expect to enjoy as much as I did. I feel like I'm used to the usual anime vibe of usually focusing on either just a basic establishing shot or purely on the action. Whereas in this episode, we saw some shots that I feel like we don't really see in anime, and it's more so reserved for live action, right? Where you want to have these just small shots, just detailing, like, again, like the water pipe or something like that. But as far as the organization goes, I'm curious on whether this is going to be like the typical thing of him being sort of a outlier in all of this, right? Because he's like half demon, half human, right? And that's why he's super interesting, and that's why they take him in. Or whether or not that's a relatively common thing, and they're like demon hunters, and it's just like a complete norm. Obviously, in the trailers, we have seen a few characters with also like some very distinct abilities, so I'm guessing those are also like half and half human, half demon. And I just want to understand basically how the whole system even works. The magic system in Chainsaw Man does also appear to be surprisingly interesting, because we have these random demons that have seemingly distinct abilities, right? Because this demon was a zombie demon. If each and every one of the demons has a super unique ability, then I feel like that would be really cool too. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. So, all that said, I really enjoyed the first episode. I mean, I went in with very high expectations, and I feel like they were met. I don't really know anything from the manga, so my expectations were purely built on what people have said, right? That it's going to be like absolutely awesome, it's going to be brutal, it's going to be akin to like Attack on Titan's level of I don't know, brutality, darkness, grittiness, and all that. And I feel like I got all that. I'm really excited to see the second episode. I feel like from a production standpoint, it is also super high quality, which is to be expected from MAPPA, to be honest. I feel like giving us the entire transformation sequence was very much a necessity for the first episode. So yeah, I do think that if they will slow down, I'm glad that they at least made the first episode basically work as a hook, which I feel like you could easily argue that they didn't even need to do. I feel like Chainsaw Man had more than enough hype behind it to drag this entire thing out even to like 2 or 3 episodes. But I think that because they sped it up, I at least enjoyed it a lot. I think it gave like enough hints toward Denji's backstory and all that to get me super interested, but didn't give me enough for me to actually get what's going on properly. And I know, I just like that. I just really like that. I guess That's all I wanted to say about the first episode. I'm definitely super excited to see more, if that isn't clear enough, and I haven't said it 50 million times already. Basically, my takeaway for this is that hopefully, with like Attack on Titan and Chainsaw Man doing incredible numbers, hopefully we see the return of more like dark and gritty and serious anime. I don't know if Chainsaw Man happens to like move into comedy as well at some point. I sure hope not. Obviously, it's going to have some level of comedy. I mean, this episode arguably had some too, right? Like with the whole food and all that. But I wanted to stay grounded as much as it can do in a setting such as this. So maybe we're going to see a shift toward more mature audiences, hopefully. Because obviously there's the meme of anime is designed for like high schoolers, right? That's like the whole reason why every single series is set in a high school, which I am absolutely sick of. I'll be completely honest with you. The moment I see a shonen set in a high school with an OP protagonist, I just roll my eyes over. It's unfortunate, but hopefully, Chainsaw Man might be one of those things that does shift the industry into a different direction. But yes, I think I'll call it a day. Will I do this weekly? Who knows? Maybe. Maybe I'm gonna turn this into a mini podcast where I just ramble on about Chainsaw Man because I want to every single week. Who knows? Obviously with this one, as I said, I didn't really expect to talk about it much, so I didn't really write a lot of things down, which normally I would have. So maybe next time I'm going to take more diligent notes, and we'll discuss it even more in depth. If they keep up this level of cinematography, I feel like I could talk about that alone for like 30 minutes. Alright, have a good one, bye-bye.